Okay, it's 10, so I would say we start.
Sure.
Okay. Herzlich willkommen an alle zur heutigen vierten Ausgabe unserer schönen Webinar-Serie Bibliotheken als Orte, als demokratische Plattformorte, Inspiration aus dem Ausland. Mein Name ist Juliana Pranke, ich bin Referentin für internationale Kooperation beim DBV und diese Reihe findet im Rahmen des Kompetenznetzwerks Bibliothek statt. Ähm, Bevor wir gleich starten, kurz ein paar nochmal praktische, technische Hinweise. Wir hatten gerade schon die Erklärung, wie das mit dem Bildschirm, Entschuldigung, mit den Übersetzungstiteln funktioniert. Sie sehen unten im Menü entweder drei Punkte, auf denen mehr oder sowas Ähnliches steht ja bei jedem manchmal was anderes bei Zoom. Also Sie klicken entweder auf mehr oder wenn Sie schon dieses CC-Zeichen sehen mit Untertitel, klicken Sie dort drauf. Dann erscheint ein Menü, das so oder so ähnlich aussieht. Hier würden Sie Übersetzung aktivieren und dann können Sie noch Ihre Sprache auswählen, also vermutlich Deutsch. Und dann sollte das Ganze funktionieren. Wir nehmen diese Session auf. Das heißt, es wird hinterher ein Video geben. Und ich habe in der Vergangenheit, und das würde ich auch diesmal wieder so machen, es so gemacht, dass ich allen, die sich für für dieses Webinar angemeldet haben, wenn das Video verfügbar ist auf der Webseite des DBV, habe ich noch mal eine E-Mail geschickt und quasi den Link zum Video mitgegeben, beziehungsweise auch zu den Folien der jeweiligen Referentinnen. Auch die Folien des heutigen Vortrags werden wir dann dort zur Verfügung stellen. Ähm, genau. Nur aus Interesse würde ich mal kurz fragen, ob wir Zuschauerinnen aus Österreich oder der Schweiz heute haben. Da können Sie vielleicht mal kurz unten die virtuelle Hand heben. Ah ja, okay. Frau Leninger, Sie kommen aus Österreich?
Ja, richtig, aus Wien.
Ah, super, okay.
Ja.
Und Frau Bittner, sind Sie auch aus Österreich? Okay, es sind noch mehr Menschen. Aber Sie wollen nicht sagen, wo Sie her sind. Das macht nichts. Aber okay, auf jeden Fall zwei bis drei Personen. Oder Frau Herzog-Gutsch, wollen Sie noch?
Ja,
Ja,
ich bin
Sie,
aus Wien.
okay, auch aus Wien.
Ja,
Schön.
ja,
Okay, herzlich willkommen.
danke.
Ähm, Dann können Sie die Hände auch wieder runternehmen. Genau, grundsätzlich können Sie gerne die Kamera anlassen, also anmachen oder auslassen, wie Sie möchten. Genau. Und dann würde ich jetzt übergeben an unseren heutigen Sprecher, Efe Evwaraye von der TIMEOUT Stiftung. Und genau, so I switch to English now and say welcome to our webinar. I'm very happy to have you here. To have a session with Timeout has been on my mind basically from the first session because those of you who were there might remember that the colleagues from Aarhus presented what they do in terms of democracy and community outreach and democracy and discussion in the library. And they told us, yeah, last year already, that they've been trained in the timeout method, and Asmund was a big promoter of the timeout method. So I'm very excited to have you here today, Efe, and learn about this method. And yeah, be inspired, and maybe also we might come to that talk about another method that already exists in German libraries called Sprechen und Zuhören. So we can compare and see what the methods can achieve. So without any further ado, now, Efe, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Juliana. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My apologies, I cannot hold this presentation or introduction in German. I wish I could. I was actually surprised that I could also pick up and follow some of the things that you were actually saying and talking about, Juliana. So I got to live close to a year in Germany, and during that time, I got to pick up some of the language also. But ich habe vergessen, one can say, one can say. But yeah, it's great to be here. So my name is Efe Evwaraye. I come from an organization, as mentioned, from TIMEOUT Foundation. I work as an expert in TIMEOUT Foundation, and I guess you could today describe as very much as a consultancy. We are not for profit. We are a non-profit organization, but the work that we do is very consultative. So we work with a lot of different actors in society, with government administration, with NGOs, with education sector, with media sector, with cities and municipalities, and all these different societal actors we get to work with in our everyday life. The first 3 years of our existence, our foundation's, our organization's slogan was "Let's make Finland the best in constructive dialogue." And whenever we would say that in the Finnish context, in Finland, whenever we would say that out loud, it would cause amusement in some people, skepticism in some people, and something else in other people. But nonetheless, we know that it's something that we have to become better at. We have to get better at. And then also we know that actually majority of the people living in Finland actually also enjoy in-depth discussions and enjoy learning about the ideas, those of others. And so in that sense, it also puts us in a good situation that, okay, we have a quite good starting point in this journey. But now, for obvious reasons, we also want to spread the knowledge that we have and do the work we do with the larger pool of people as well. So everyone who are interested in dialogue, we want to do that. We want to collaborate with and help make dialogue culture more constructive. I think at this point, I can start sharing my screen also. I think it's really important that you get some of the background and what is it that we actually work with, and some of the core elements, what it is that we work with, just to give you like a good idea and understanding of what are we actually talking about. A lot of times when we talk about timeouts, we may think of it as a dialogue, as a dialogue that takes place, but actually it entails more. It consists of more parts than that. A lot of times what takes place prior to the dialogue, what takes place during the dialogue, what takes place after the dialogue, and why the dialogue is being organized. You can think of it that way. So we're actually talking about a package, in a sense, a totality, one can describe it perhaps. So we go back in time all the way to 2016, and that's when timeout method was started being created. And at the time it was created, it was a 3-year project in a Finnish innovation fund called Sitra, which is also one of our founders. And at the time, it was a bit unclear that what was it that was going to be developed. It was clear that, okay, we had certain challenges in the Finnish society regarding discussion culture that then reflected on other things such as democracy and trust in nature and all these different things. So you could, for example, say that, okay, you may have had a professional, say a researcher of a topic, of a subject, who may have not want to share their ideas and use the know-how that they have publicly, because the culture around the topic, what the social climate as far as the topic goes, was quite harsh. So they would opt out. Or you may have a reporter who may not want to create a story of a certain topic because of the same reason, because the discussion culture is around the topic is very, very hard. It doesn't necessarily fall align with someone's ideological beliefs or agenda or whichever. And those are all information that is not then given to either you or myself or someone else. Or then, for example, we have signs that we have a growing number of people who no longer want to participate in public or in societal conversation due to various reasons. Not only because they fear, they have any sort of fear, or but due to various reasons. It can be that the culture, that the dialogue culture, around certain topics people may perceive that as too academic, or it may be that you may not have enough know-how regarding the topic, or it may be that even though the topic is one that touches upon your everyday life, you still opt to stay out of the discussion because you may not feel too strongly of the topic. So there's various different reasons why people then opt out of the conversation, but nonetheless, it's still important that we do engage. And this was kind of the climate at the time. And during the 3-year project, then after trying out different things, different methods, different ways of engaging with people, it then became clear that okay, it's a semi-structured method for dialogue, constructive dialogue, called TIMEOUT. And at the end of the 3 years, then the TIMEOUT Foundation was started or founded in May 2019. So these 4 actors came together: Jenny Antti Vihuri Foundation, the Finnish Innovation Fund Sitra, Finnish Cultural Foundation, and the Swedish Cultural Foundation in Finland. These actors came together in a sense that they then formed, or they founded, TIMEOUT Foundation to keep doing the work that had begun during the 3-year project in Sitra. And there's actually a couple of reasons. One, because the societal need had not vanished, it had not gone anywhere, it was very much still present. And the other reason being that I guess you could not talk about clear results, but you could talk about signs. You could talk about clear signs that what had been developed also seemed to work in different parts in Finland. So it's worth to keep going. So therefore, the TIMEOUT Foundation was then established to be a dialogue actor, dialogue player in the Finnish society. And then starting in 2025, the Britta-Maria Rehnlund Memorial Foundation also joined forces in the sense that it became a funder. It now enables us to do a lot more work also with focus being in youth and adolescents. Yeah. Our team today consists of 7 people. So we have our CEO, Laura Arikka, the program manager, Jonna Similä, and then experts, myself, my colleague, Valtteri, and then Petra Larvus as well. And then we also have our colleagues, the coordinators, Vilja and Evelina. And the workplace is located in Puistokatu 4, which is the House of Science and Hope in Helsinki, which is a beautiful area and a beautiful park right by the sea. So if you're ever in Helsinki, please do come visit us. I highly recommend it because it's a beautiful place. So the objectives in today's society, what we are in society, we are a player who try to strengthen trust between people and towards society, strengthen civic participation and democracy, and then also strengthen societal resilience. So whenever we do as a society then experience or as communities, whenever we do face different challenges, crisis times, for example, regardless of what are the reasons, whether it's aging population or climate crisis or whatever it is, we've experienced now pandemic time, and then energy crisis, and then the war in this phase that it's now in Ukraine, and all these different things. So they have an impact in our society. So whatever the reasons are that we face crisis, that we're always in good enough position to kind of take on the crisis and tackle it, take it head on, and keep moving forward. So why do we need TIMEOUT in Finland? On top of the before mentioned, one of the core reasons for our existence is also is to help keep polarization as a phenomenon at a moderate enough level, not erase it, not prevent it from happening. Those things, it happens. It just is. It's in society, but always keep it at a moderate enough level. Always keep it at a moderate enough level so that violent acts wouldn't, for example, happen. That's one of very core reasons for our existence also. And we do that by making the conversation culture, discussion culture, dialogue culture more constructive. As I mentioned before, we collaborate with a lot of different actors, with media sector, and we public administration, cities, municipalities, and we had a project, quite a long project. We had a 5-year project that we coordinated together with the Finnish broadcasting company YLE, and we had a lot of different things that took place under the project. One of the things that did take place also under the project was a survey that was conducted annually from 2020 to 2025, and the survey it studied how people living in Finland, how they experience conversation culture. What kind of experience do they have? What do they think of the conversation culture in the country? And we could see that 72%. These results were published in November 25. So 72% feel that Finnish conversation culture has taken a turn for the worse. 25%, 1/4, feel that they cannot share their thoughts without fear of other people, of others. 86% want more respect for other people, both in traditional media and on social media. And 77% enjoy in-depth discussions and situations where they can learn from the ideas of those involved in the discussion. And 61% would like to have more opportunities to enjoy constructive dialogue. So we have challenges, but yet, as mentioned before, we also have a need, or we also have a desire to engage in constructive dialogue. We also have desire to learn ideas of those involved in the discussion. So one way of looking at it is that we have to tackle some of these challenges that we're currently facing. And the other way of looking at it is also that we want to provide these spaces and sort of feed the majority of the people who still enjoy in-depth discussions and situations where they can learn from the ideas of those involved in the discussion. And the 61% who would like to have more opportunities to enjoy constructive dialogue. Another thing that's very strongly linked to our work is the trust element. And Finland ordered a trust survey from the OECD, and these results were published in 2021. And the results still show that, okay, the Finland's in global rankings, like global comparisons, like Finland still ranks very high at the top of the list in terms of nation of trust. So there's high levels of trust toward public institutions. There's high levels of trust between people and between population groups as well. But we do have challenges. One being that there are disparities, as you can see. So we have a person living in a rural area might have, or a person with a lower education background might have a lot less trust towards political decision-making processes, for example, than that old person who has a higher education background who lives in a city, in an urban area, urban environment. So we have disparities between population groups. And then also another thing is, this is called the Finnish paradox, is that when you compare Finland to other nations where there's high levels of trust in other nations, individuals also feel like they have good opportunities and possibilities to impact decision making, for example. Whereas in Finland, that's not the case. It doesn't go hand in hand, once again, compared to other nations where there's high levels of trust. So, and one of the ways of taking on these challenges that OECD gave Finland is that they should be tackled by promoting broader social dialogue in Finland. It should be done. So that's how the work is very much linked to trust. Increasing dialogue between individuals, between population groups, individuals, and then institutions, so that the trust towards society would be as high as possible across all different population groups. So when you think about it, so why important? Once again, we're still talking about the background. So why important? So democracy and societal peace. So we talk about encouraging people to maintain and live a democratic lifestyle, already starting from the fact that they would participate in conversations regarding different topics and understand their relationship with these different topics, whether regardless whether they are very, very, very local or whether they're nationwide, national topics, that they would still and big, large themes, that they would still participate in the discussions. That's one. Maintain and increase trust within society, between people and towards society. And then I've now bolded this one, but this is many times in our work, whenever we throw the words constructive dialogue or polarization, we talk about these different things, we tend to easily start thinking about, or the image that we get in our heads. Oh, that's right. So we have the polar opposites of one another, the perceived polar opposites of one another. We should bring them together, have them engage in conversation about a topic that they feel very strongly different about. But and maybe even do it publicly. But that's not really what timeout is about. That's not really what timeout is about. And I hope that you really take this in. What timeout is about is this: improving dialogue and dialogical connection between groups of people who live in and experience different realities. That's more so what timeout is about. I use a lot of examples, and I never do it to underestimate anyone. But to give you an example, I use this one. That they say we have different traits. We have different traits that differ us from one another. For example, and these traits might have a lot to do with how we experience the world surrounding us. Say, for example, myself, I am a male, I am a millennial, I belong to that generation. I also belong to a visible minority. All these different traits in me might, for example, make my experience regarding the world around me or the environment around me very different than that of, for example, Juliana's. If I use this example a lot, but say myself and Juliana would be next door neighbors and we get on a tram, but we wouldn't know each other. We wouldn't know each other, but we live right next door, but we wouldn't have any sort of relationship. We would not know each other. We get on a tram at 10:30 in the evening and start making our way home. And then we get off of the tram, say around 10:45 in the evening, and there's two ways for us to get home. There's a small trail that goes through the forest, which takes approximately 5 minutes, and then you're home. And then there's another way, which takes 4 times longer, but there's construction, and then there's lighting also across the whole way home. It may be, I don't know for sure, but it may be that 10 times out of 10 in Juliana's head, there's only one way for her to get home. Only one way for her to get home. And it's the long one. And it's the long one. In my head, Efe's head, there's also only one way of getting home. It's obviously the short trail that I can take to get home. I'm thinking to myself at 10:45 in the evening, I'm tired. I have to wake up early in the morning. It's cold here. Like I just want to get home and get to bed and wake up to another day. Of course, I'm taking the short route. Of course, I'm taking a short route. My decision making may also be impacted by the fact that I'm 187 centimeters tall. I weigh 120 kilos and I practice martial arts. All these different things, these traits in me may have something to do with how I, for example, experience threats to my physical safety at the moment. Right? So the point being that we have exactly the same environment, exactly the same everything as far as goes regarding the environment, but two completely different decisions that are being made. And they might have everything to do with, for example, in this case, the traits or the lived experiences that we've had. thus far. So that's more so what it is that we're talking about. And in different contexts, it can be different traits that have more meaning or more of a significance. For example, in work context, rather than thinking about gender, it may be that, or ethnicity, it may be that we're thinking about the things that influence how I experience the realities or the environment is that, for example, how where do I rank in the hierarchy of the organization, or from which premises do I conduct my work, or what's part of my job description, for example. It may be that in that context, those are some of the traits that then have a lot more significance than some other, such as gender or ethnicity or whichever. But yeah, that's more so what it is that we're talking about. So we have, instead of thinking about opinion bubbles, we're actually talking about more so reality bubbles. How do we increase more understanding regarding the world surrounding us, regarding the environments that we are surrounded by? That's more so saying, even though they would not align, because we do have the traits uh, that differ us from one another, but we still gain more of an understanding of the different bubbles that exist around us. So that's more so what it is that we work with. And then the last point, that making dialogue skill a civic competence. So we're in a marathon. We're not in a sprint. But dialogue in itself is something many of you, if not all of you, might know a lot more about dialogue than I do. It's something that you can really become better at. You can learn about different schools of thought. You can always try to be better at it. But when wanting to engage with large group of people, with people who come from different backgrounds, people who come with different capabilities, from people who come from different realities, and help all the large group of people kind of initiate, and then also carry over a dialogue. That's kind of the need where where timeout method in itself can then help you. And what is it that we're talking about when we talk about dialogue? Well, it says here in the work, whenever you participate in a timeout dialogue, this is what you participate in. A dialogue is a constructive and equal way of having a discussion. It is aimed at understanding others, but not at reaching unanimity. At best, a dialogue generates unpredictable insights and new thinking. I can give you an example of my everyday life. How many times does it happen that we have predetermined that what topic are we going to discuss, and then one person is coming to have a debate? The goal of the debate is to win. That is the goal of the debate. The goal of the debate is to win. One person is coming to engage in a negotiation where we are looking for an agreement. We're looking to make a deal and reach a level of unanimity. That is the goal of the negotiation, whether it's a peace negotiation or a business-related negotiation. That's the goal of the negotiation. And a third person is looking to participate in a timeout dialogue. Well, the goal is always to gain a deeper understanding of the topic, of oneself and others, through mutual participation. So we've all engaged in different conversations in that sense, because the goal in all these three different conversations is different also. So the goal is always in the timeout dialogue to gain a deeper understanding of the topic, oneself, and others. That's always the goal, to gain a deeper understanding. Not necessarily even a mutual understanding, but a deeper understanding. Learn about the topic That's what it is that we're talking about whenever we talk about timeout time. So we're never in a situation where one is looking for arguments for or against a topic, but we're always trying to express our reality in relation to the topic. Now that was some of the background and to give you some of the idea that what it is that we work in, what kind of societal need the method has been to match. But I was thinking that I could go over some of the key elements regarding the actual method and what it consists of. It's nothing uncomplicated. It's nothing complicated. It's actually what we always say. It's nothing that you have not been aware of since you were 5 years of age. So there's nothing you can look at the method from all these different angles and you will not find anything that you have not been aware of since you were a little child. I'm positive about that, but it's more so that it consists of very simple pieces, but we should not make any compromises with those pieces. And so I try to shed some light on the pieces right now. So it's an open and free method for everyone to use. Anyone can use the method. Our work is purely driven by purpose in society. So you can go to the website of TIMEOUT Foundation, use all these different tools, however much you like, and you are not even responsible of reporting that to us. The point is to increase civic participation, and the point is to have as many people as possible engage and participate in societal discussion. You can choose any topic that you find important, and each discussion is always facilitated. So each discussion always has a facilitator, and that its facilitator is also part of the structure of the method. And at the end of the dialogue, we're not looking for unanimity. So you don't have to, it's okay to leave the dialogue with understanding better that I'm very much I think very differently about this topic than other people. So we're not looking for unanimity. We kind of relieve the burden of that it brings with. Nor are we looking for solutions or actively looking for solutions or making decisions during the dialogue. That is not neither the point. Those are also some of the burden that has been relieved. So the point is always to gain a deeper understanding. You don't have to worry about reaching unanimity. A good group of people is, we always say 10 plus minus. So if you're in the 6 to 15 participant range, then that's actually quite good. If you go to our website, you see the window from anywhere between 3 and 25. 3 because timeout has been developed to encourage to enable group discussion or group dialogue. That's one. And then 25 because that almost starts to be like very, very much the limit. But anywhere between 6 and 15 is actually quite good, to be honest with you. All discussions are confidential unless agreed otherwise. And the timeout is not about mediation. It's not about reconciliation. It's not about debate. It's not a therapy session. It's not a workshop. It's not advocacy. It's not wanting to be done in a hurry. We live very much in a fast world at the moment, where we get news a lot, and all these different things take place in a very short period of time. We are probably also used to making quick decisions in a very short period of time. And you can consider timeout very much as a countering force to that. It's something that requires time. It requires a peaceful environment, and it requires attentiveness a lot from the participants. And we really stop and call a timeout for a little bit. Another key element as part of the method are the ground rules for a constructive conversation. And this is then what makes the conversation always, regardless of the participants, but it always makes the conversation then agreement-based. So we have 4 rules, ground rules for constructive conversation that we all adhere to. We all commit to these rules. Number 1, listen to others without interrupting or having side conversations. Instead of speaking on top of one another, and instead of thinking about what is it that I am going to say next, I'm actually thinking what the person whose turn it is to speak is actually at this moment saying. And oftentimes we feel like there's some ill will, or some of the thoughts that may come to your mind regarding this rule is that it has to have to do with ill will, like a rage or like this strong feeling. But I know myself, and if Juliana was to say something that I find really exciting or inspiring, I find it really easy to kind of speak on top of her. Julia, yeah, one thing that came to my mind, but it doesn't exclude the fact that I've now interrupted her turn to speak. So we pay attention to ourselves as far as that. Then number 2, share your own experiences and perspectives. So rather than speaking constantly in a passive form based on opinions, and this should be done to that, or that should be done to this, or Austrians are like this, Germans are like this, and Swedes are like this, and Finns are like this, we actually bring it closer. How does this phenomena change thing in society? How does this impact how does this impact my everyday life? How do I see it? How do I witness? What kind of observations do I have? What kind of viewpoints stem from these? What is my perspective in relation to this question, for example, or this phenomena, for example? So we bring it from here to here. And then number 3, allow room for unfinished thoughts and different viewpoints. So the world does not have to be ready after one timeout dialogue. There's no need to put that kind of burden on the topic, on the dialogue. It's so do not bring into the conversation a thought that you have had in your mind that you feel like is maybe unfinished, but more so you are encouraged to bring it into the conversation, because you're encouraged to bring the thought into the conversation, because it may be then something that then enriches the conversation, the dialogue as a whole. It may lead to someone else thinking about the same question and adding something else to the conversation as well, and it then makes it more fruitful. And these are also something that then also enable new insights and new understanding. And then number 4, respect others and keep the dialogue confidential. So we always respect all participants and their human dignity, as well as those and theirs who are not participating in the dialogue. And all timeout dialogues are confidential unless agreed otherwise. So we as a group agree to keep the dialogue then confidential also, to enable people to participate more freely and make it in that sense better also. And this is very much the setting, like a timeout setting. We've come to face each other. We have come to face each other. You're not here to look at the back of my head or look at my neck or my back, but we're here to face each other. So whenever possible, this is how we always want the setup to be. And these yellow papers that you see there in the middle, they're actually the ground rules for constructive dialogue that we just went over. And they're visible throughout the whole dialogue, so people then see it. And the white papers that we see here, they're actually name tags. These are just A4 papers where people have had the opportunity to write their names in. So we can always address each other by our names, either our first names or nicknames, or the names we address to. And then the structure of the method. So we start the conversation. At first, we go over the topic of the dialogue. You can say we go over the topic of the dialogue. This is what we have come here to discuss. This topic, not this, not this, not this, not this. This is what we have come here to discuss. Okay, this topic. Then we go over who are you as the facilitator. What is your role as the facilitator? You are the person who gives the word to speak. You are the person, if need, limits also the word to speak. It limits the speaking terms, not out of ill will, but always to support the equality of the conversation. That's, if you were ever to do that, that's the reason you do it. We also go over what is the goal of the dialogue, and we go over what is not the goal of the dialogue. We always remind the participants of that. So those things are said out loud and they become clear. After which we go over the introductions, who's here, who is there present, and then we focus on uncover the ground rules for constructive dialogue that we just covered. If I'm not sure that that during the last 3 months, all participants have participated in a timeout dialogue facilitated by me and multiple times, then I always go over the ground rules for constructive dialogue one by one because it pays off. It's like a given, and if we take it out of if we leave it out of the equation, we feel the impact quite soon, and we might have to pay a price for that. So it's one of the simple things that we do not make compromises on. And then we may have or may not have an introduction to the topic. It may be a news article. It may be an expert speech, a presentation. It may be a summary of survey results or research results. It may be a song, even a short video, perhaps something that tunes us in to have a dialogue regarding the topic. Then we have an individual reflection. You will get about 2 to 3 minutes time to just think about the tune in or the introduction to the topic, and just think about it and kind of reflect what kind of thoughts have come to my mind regarding this topic. After which we then start the group dialogue. So the individual reflection is there so that it will not only be a dialogue for the fastest or the quickest participants, but it's actually a dialogue for everyone. And then we have a group dialogue, and the large part of the say anywhere between or of the 60 minutes or planned 120 minutes is then reserved for the group dialogue. But it then also consists of deepening the dialogue. I can, as a facilitator, bring another question that we then jointly discuss in the group, and that's how we have then deepened the dialogue. And it may be that we deepen the dialogue 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, depending on how much time we have reserved for the dialogue. And all the way until the end, we then have, as a last question, we have the reflection time when I normally present it in a way that, I have one more question to present to you. And it's actually that, what kind of insights have you gained during our conversation, during our dialogue? Now, the last 80 minutes, for example. You give a few minutes to the participants to think about the insights. What have they gained? What are some of the insights or main thoughts that have come to them during the dialogue? After which we then share them. Everyone gets an opportunity to share some of the insights that they've gotten. A lot of times, some of the insights have to do with just general feeling, how people feel. And other times, it may have to do with the structure of the dialogue. A lot of times it may have to do directly with the content of the dialogue, but they vary quite a lot. And then we close the dialogue in the end, bring to a close. So ideally, before, all participants always know what they are taking part in. So they know that they are not coming to have a debate or they are not coming to have an argument for or against a topic, but they're participating in a timeout dialogue and what the point of the dialogue is, what the goal of the dialogue is. So they're already tuned in. During, we always stay honest and true to the goal of the dialogue, which is deepening understanding and understanding various perspectives regarding the dialogue, regarding the topic. And then in the end, we have after we have the self-reflection, during which we think, what have I learned? How has me participating impacted either myself and or decision making, if it has been organized as part of a decision-making process? And then what and when to discuss next time. And lastly, I would say this is my last slide now, and then I'll come back to you. But a couple of core things, because a lot of times people do ask us about how do we reach out to different people, like how do we find the people who do not normally participate in these different discussions. And it's a process. There's a process to it, and there are different ways. But the core idea in that always is that we always want to enable joint encounters amongst people from different backgrounds. Remember, not only the polar opposites, they are quite easy to find and point out, but more so the ones who do not normally participate. So say we have a topic, then it's easy to know that, okay, who does this topic concern? Oh, it concerns these and these people. They are already oftentimes active. Well, who does this topic concern who does not participate in the dialogues normally? So you follow these 3 steps. You take it one step further and start thinking about who was the large group of silent voices. And as mentioned, that's always a very large group, the silent voices. And then we start looking for ways. How can we find all these different people and navigate and try activate them and get them to participate. And they are oftentimes they're agents in life. Like they vote, they do all these different, they just do not necessarily participate in discussions. Another thing is experience talk, which is also a core element, core thing in the method. It's something that enables a more equal encounter. A lot of times, why I can't speak for everyone, but a lot of times, one of the main answers that we get often when we ask people to join the dialogue is people say that, well, I don't know too much about this topic. I should not be the one talking about this, even though it's a confidential conversation behind closed doors. And it's a topic that touches upon their everyday life. Then that's something that giving people the opportunity to participate in the dialogue and just expressing their reality in relation to the topic is actually one thing that then in theory and often in practice also makes it a lot more equal. So we're not engaging in a debate whether we're out of knowledge, but rather we're engaging in a dialogue about a topic from our realities. That's one thing. And then the other point is it differs from pure knowledge-based conversation. I try to provide this example often that for example, I can say out of fact, I don't know what the state is at the moment, but I can say that with multiple measures, Finland is a very, very safe country. I can say that the country has never been as safe as it is for the vast majority of its people. I can say that, and it may be a fact. Like it's one of the safest countries in the world. I can say that as a fact. But still, an elderly person living, say, for example, in a rural area, whenever they step outside the house to go to the grocery store, they might fear that will someone attack them during their way to the grocery store, for example. Whereas if they would be concerned for their physical safety during winter time, they probably should be thinking about whether they have spikes underneath their shoes or not, so that they would not slip on ice. But the concerns and fears that they have to do with if someone will attack them, for example. And these are all things coming out of my head, just to give you an example. And these are 2 very different angles to the conversation. So out of knowledge, I can say something, but out of experience, but still, the experience might be very different. And these are then also something that give us more insight and deeper understanding regarding the topic. So now I understand we're not still debating whether a fact is a fact. That's not what we're here to do, but we're here to understand even better. So from like an expert's point of view at this point, one could think that, okay, well, it only carries weight to a certain degree when we can say out of a fact that this is very safe. But if it's problematic if people that don't feel like it, what do we need to understand better? What do we not need to be better at in order for that not to be the case, for example? Yes. I think this is a good time for me to stop speaking and presenting. I think there's so many things out of theory that you can still talk, but I think it'll be more fruitful if I can exchange thoughts and ideas and listen to your questions now at this point. But all the material we have is on our website, and we also conduct a lot of trainings conduct a lot of trainings. And up until thus far, we have 13,830 organized dialogues. Nearly 155 people have participated. 155,000 people have participated in timeout dialogues, and over 862 organizations have been using or are using the timeout method. And during 25 alone, over 1,000 organized timeout dialogues, out of which Timeout Foundation was responsible over 22%, only 22%. So that's one thing that I really enjoy about the method. Also, that it's been created just to be passed on, so anyone can use it. And these numbers it may be that you can multiply them actually by 3. So we know for a fact that the numbers are also bigger, but this is just that we know of. Yes. Let me come back to you, and I would love to hear some of your thoughts.
Thank you, Efe. Yeah, it was good to get such a good overview and also all the background information. We already have some questions in the chat. I would invite everybody to raise their hands and ask questions or write them in the chat in English or German, doesn't matter. And I will actually start with the first question because it's one that came up yesterday in Berlin as well. So maybe for the others to know, the Zentral- und Landesbibliothek in Berlin took some Erasmus Plus money and actually invited a colleague of Efe to the ZLB, and they received a training, like 20 librarians at the ZLB received a training in a timeout method yesterday and the day before. And yesterday evening, there was a small event, and I was lucky enough to participate in that. And at the end of this round, one of the librarians from Berlin said something similar to what our colleague from Gütersloh now put in the chat, that they already use the Sprechen und Zuhören method, this other method that I told you about, Efe. And they offer lots of opportunities and invite people, and they experience that nobody's interested. So people simply do not come, which basically contradicts that figure that you gave of 61% Finns who would like to have more opportunities. And I would imagine it's a similar, if you did a survey in Germany, probably people would also say we need more opportunities. But then you present these opportunities and people do not come for various reasons. So one of my questions is, what are sort of the enablers, or what do you do in Finland to bring people in? Like, how do you convince them to take their precious time and sit together with strangers and discuss whatever topic?
Yeah, that's a really good, valid question. One that we have had to think about a lot. It varies. It depends a lot on who it is that we're trying to reach out to. But the general answer that I normally give, especially in international context, is also in the Finnish context as well, is that if I think about Finland as a society, it's quite organized, meaning that we have an NGO for everything. one can say there's an NGO for everything. One can say so we have a lot of different actors and operators in society who already reach certain population groups, for example. So then we normally navigate through them quite a lot. Say if we were to organize a dialogue or series of dialogue in a certain area in, say, northeastern part of Finland, we always look at who are some of the key operators, who are some of the key actors in the area. It may be a sports club, it may be a school, it may be some other recreational, say an NGO, for example. It may be anywhere. We know that, okay, these organizations or these actors, they have direct contact to these different communities. Okay, so let's try to get the people to participate through these contacts that we have now established or identified. That's really one helpful way. Another thing is also keeping in mind that we're here to play the long game. So it's not so that we should do not be too hard on yourself. if the first dialogue that you wanted to organize is not one that you thought it would be, but more so like think of it in a longer time span. How does it look like in August, and how does it then look like, say, for example, in March or April, the following March or April? It may be that we have now gone up from August's 4 participants all the way to on average 15 by March. But it's a result of us doing the work constantly. And that's one of the challenges in timeout also, is that people kind of this has happened so many times that people kind of buy into it, and they understand it once they have experienced it, and that's kind of the thing. So that's it's once you have one time experienced it, then the following time is the bar is set so much lower. But there is quite a lot of anxiety and not necessarily stress, but anxiety and a level of anxiousness as far as participating. But that's invitation process is one that always requires the most time. It pays off, but it always requires the most time. Yeah. And personal invitation also. If you allow me, I can also say one more thing, is also asking people directly, what do you think we should talk about? Which are some of the topics, what are some of the concerns you may have? What are some of the topics that you would like to discuss? And oftentimes the topics may be very different than of those that we have had in our minds previously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Silke Niermann. She asked the question in the
Yes,
chat.
thank you, Efe. Very good informations. It's similar like sprechen and zuhören. We used was, but I think as I told yesterday with a colleague, he's always here in the community, about this problem that we have several dates of Sprechen and Zuhören by us in our library since last year. First we have some participants for this dialogue format, but we have the experience or the thought that it's for the people in our town, our city. It's an unusual function of a public library that we offer such dialogue dates, and I think we have need more power, more other dates, maybe, I don't know. So we also use our local networks and several companies and all around us we are connected with, but it's very, very hard to get the people together for such a thing, for such a dialogue. Yeah.
Yes, and that's, I think, thank you, Silke, and I think that's one also one thing that came to my mind is also, I actually discussed this with Doc One, with Asmund and Sara as well previously when we met, that, for example, because they, for example, organize quite a lot, and different libraries in Finland as well, they organize quite a lot of discussion events. Say there is a panel discussion, and then one can also bring timeout into that context, into the library, as a to enable dialogues after the panel discussion. For example, say you have political decision makers discussing about a topic, and even if they are not engaging in a dialogue as such, but more, say, election debate, it may be then followed, since the people are already there, it may be then followed with group dialogues, small group dialogues about what just took place in the panel discussion. So when that's also one way you can bring timeout as part of your, I guess you can call it, repertoire. I'm sorry. Entschuldigung. So, yes. But that's also one way. So instead of carrying out the very heavy invitation process, it may also be like an introduction to timeout. Could also be whenever you have an event, and then you want to you can then use the method also as part of that event, so that people then participate, and you can provide them with that experience as well. That seems to work quite well also in the Finnish libraries, to my understanding. Mm.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of also learning, as Silke said. So people, for us, it's that we are here speaking in the library is very obvious, but it's still not out there in the world that this is a thing. So yeah, as you said, it's probably a marathon, and it takes a lot of patience, and yeah. I have another question in the chat. I will read it out. So somebody wrote, I have a question. Are there rules against technical implements? I experience a lot of people, you or who wouldn't have expected it from using their phones, tablets, etc. at all times. Even settings like this, when you would think it a matter of course that everyone takes the timeout seriously and concentrates on what is happening in the room. Frau Feldgen, so you mean that people use their phones while they're in the session? Or?
Yes, it actually happens to us quite a lot, that we, for example, have a shared reading session and all of a sudden somebody takes out their phone and replies to something, which I think is a disturbance even then. And I know there can be reasons. Somebody has elderly parents or children they sort of have to organize or be reachable for. But I imagine that in a discussion like the one described, that would be very harmful for the environment of trust and of exchanging opinions. So I was wondering if you talked about that up front and said, please switch off your phones or whatever, or deal with your communicational needs before we start, or how you manage that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And this is actually, yeah, that was very much spot on. We normally, whenever we cover the ground rules for constructive dialogue, we also say that in the rule number 1, as part of that is I listen to others, do not start additional discussions, for example. And also that it's okay for us to take the time and leave, for example, the cell phones away and put them on silent. So it's actually a thing that is specifically that is mentioned and being brought up also, because it works exactly like that. That it's not because one could not listen at the same time when doing something else, but more so that the people, the person whose turn it is to speak during the dialogue, also feel like they are being listened to. What they are saying is also being paid attention. So that's more so the thing, and it's a very big thing. So we always advise people to leave out cell phones. It may also be a situation that we have let them know beforehand that we do that. Let's try to put those away for the time being. Yes, because it does have a huge impact. It does affect on the dialogue as well. Takes away from us presence.
Yeah. Okay, another question in the chat. It's great that participants of timeout sessions are informed about exactly what they will be attending before the session. With some people with their anxieties, or it will help some people with their anxieties. How exactly is this information communicated?
Yeah. Normally, this varies depending on who organizes dialogue, and it varies a lot depending on the context as well. For example, in the school environment, if a teacher chooses to use the timeout method, like the pupils do not necessarily have all that much of a say on how we're going to carry out. But say if we have an invitation process, then part of that invitation, we have sent out the invites. One has replied that they will participate, and we've done personal inviting. So we either called or sent a WhatsApp message or sent an email. There's different ways, but we encourage you to carry it out in a personal manner. And then as part of that say if we were to organize the dialogue at Puistokatu 4, for example, in our premises in Kaivopuisto in Helsinki, then we would always then say a week before, if not already 2 weeks before, we would always send also the instruction how you're going to get there, and then also give like a short description regarding as a reminder what the dialogue is about, what it is that we're actually having the dialogue about, and how we're going to have the dialogue. So it just makes it that much more fair. It's only responsible to do it like that. It's not always possible, but the latest part of where we cover these things is always in the beginning of the dialogue, when we actually, right before we start the dialogue, we also cover these things so that everyone is, when we actually create the foundation or lay the foundation for the dialogue. Yeah. If we were to have a timeout dialogue remotely in the online world using Zoom, for example, as we're doing right now, then beforehand, as part of the instructions, we would always say, please keep in mind, we would appreciate greatly, or we ask you to keep the camera on so that we see one another and we're that much more present. So we give people like this heads up that they understand where they are coming to, what they are walking in. Because those are some of the little things that then pay off big time during the dialogue.
Yeah. Another person responded, I think, to this anxiety question, and she suggested in the chat, maybe it would be helpful to combine a timeout discussion with a side activity, for example, knitting. Maybe it could pull more participants and would help against anxiety people may feel sitting in this setting. Have you done that? Have you done knitting while timeout?
Yeah, we have. Well, not we've had participants who have voiced out that they feel more comfortable if it's possible. Then we made sure that it's okay for everyone in the circle. So that's one thing. But that's when you also modify the method to different say if you're a special education teacher, for example, you have 8 students who have really hard time paying attention to one single thing for a 60-minute period, for example. But what enables their participation is that the dialogue takes place in a setting that is very, very comfortable to them. And then during that time, they also get to participate, not necessarily from a circle, but from another part of the classroom, and while simultaneously doing something else. But that enables their participation. Then that's how then the method works then in that environment. It's more than okay, as long as it matches the needs of the people. So you can look at it in a way that there's like this basic package, and how you can modify it in different environments, because we are not all the same. But to your question, I hope I answered your question. But yeah, so we've had individuals who have, for example, done knitting during once they have been participating, and we have always addressed it somehow also. And then we also created a tool, or essentially, what's a really good way to tackle these things is to ask, not assume, but ask. What would make this situation more approachable for you? It's a really good way. So we don't make assumptions or assume anything, but we ask.
Yeah.
How will this serve you in your life? Are you participating?
Efe, can you say something about the length of such a discussion? Like yesterday, we were 7 people and we sat together for 2 hours. But I would imagine if it's 25 people or just 15, it might be longer. I don't know. Is there like a time limit?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, one thing it does require is time and a peaceful atmosphere. It does require those things. So it's very much a countering force for the space world that we live currently. But it normally, like majority of the dialogues that I have facilitated have been 120 minutes or 2 hours at length. But I would recommend to keep it at a minimum 60 minutes, depending on how many participants you have. Say you have 4 participants, you can reserve 90 minutes, but you don't have to go full 90 minutes. If you feel like at 70 minutes, you feel like, I think we've now discussed this topic quite extensively. There's no need to then go the additional 20 minutes. So that's one thing, but harshly put, anywhere between 60 and 120 minutes. 60 or 1 hour to 2.5 hours is actually quite good. But it's also important, this is when we have to start playing, like, it's, say you try to get a parent to come to school at 5:30 in, say, or say 6 p.m. on a Wednesday evening, to engage in a dialogue, and they see whenever they see in the announcement that, okay, it's 2.5 hour dialogue, it may be a bit harder to get them to participate. But when it says 90 minutes or 120 minutes, it may be then different. So half an hour can make a difference in terms of who wants to participate also. Yeah. But yeah, if you say you reserve 45 to 60 minutes, you want to keep the number of participants a bit lower, and then always keep in mind that the point is not to tackle multiple questions during the dialogue, but more so tackle few questions and really dive deep into those questions during the dialogue. Yeah.
Okay, if there are more questions, then please raise your hand. Oh yeah, Frau Feldgen.
Thank you. I was actually just thinking if you have experienced trouble with views that were expressed. Like I understood that the aim is not for everyone to agree on something, but my background is that I did political education with really varied groups of adults, and we had some very interesting people there, and it did happen that hurtful things for people were uttered that we had to deal with. So is that something that occurs in timeout sessions frequently, or is also for that, I don't know, do you talk about it before that there's a difference between a view and hurting other people?
Yeah, no, that's a really important question. Thank you. You mentioned the word frequently. It doesn't happen frequently. And to be honest, I talk about this quite a lot in our trainings because the question is presented. But then I always start thinking about when was the last time that I encountered this situation. And I cannot honestly recall, or if there has been one, it has been a long time ago. There are various reasons for that. One being that we put so much emphasis on being proactive and not only reactive, but like laying the foundation, making everybody understand that what kind of conversation this is. But if it were to happen, it's normally it's a result of someone not committing to the rules that we have collectively decided to commit to. And that's then, as a facilitator, it makes it quite easy actually for me to then react in that situation. But I've not encountered a situation when someone's human dignity has been, or human rights have been, for example, in any ways questioned. I can't remember. I may have, but I cannot remember the last time that would have happened. It's very much agreement based, the conversation is. But if it were to happen, it's immediately for myself, like say someone would use discriminatory language. Well, that's breaking a rule that is, we keep the conversation respectful. That's then always, hey, Juliana, I heard you mention this, and this is where I have to step in, and I have to say that is not okay, and I have to remind that we have all committed to these rules collectively. And if it feels too hard, then I'll pause it here, and we can continue the conversation with the rest of the group then. So it's quite easy for me to then react in that situation. So there's no room for that. But what might happen is someone explaining their frustration, say, on a very local level, one person might say that the person, well, the traffic arrangements in my city are they're terrible, and the person who designed this traffic arrangement is a very unpleasant. Would choose to use very unfriendly words. say that. Then it's always as that's fundamentally they're expressing something in a way that doesn't fall in line with the rules that we have committed. But it is also an opportunity for myself to then be, hey, Juliana, you mentioned that this is a bad thing. Well, can you describe, like, how does this impact your everyday life negatively? Please explain that a little bit more. Like, how is this how is this a negative thing in your everyday life? Well, ever since the roundabout came there, now I used to spend 20 minutes to go to work and come back. Now I have to spend 45 minutes to go to work and come back, and it has resulted me into being late every Wednesday evening when I want to go to my dear hobby, and it really frustrates me a lot. So we've now come from expressing that something is bad, and my opinion is that the person who have designed it is really bad, to expressing that how do I view this as a bad thing? What kind of a negative impact does it have on my everyday life? So it's not necessarily a situation where I shy away from that, but more so we should shy away from that, but we can actually go head on, but we don't ever get lazy in the dialogue. The participants always have to be, in a way, willing to put more effort into explaining themselves, and that takes a lot of power then from the likelihood of situations happening like that you, for example, mentioned. Did I answer your question? This was a long answer, but did I answer
in a way, yes, but I was more thinking of situations where if you get the people that you're actually looking for, like people who are very different, they don't even mean to hurt, but they have views that in a modern society seem a little old-fashioned. Like I was thinking of an example. I was talking to a group, and they were working with refugees. And a man said, well, it is for me a really tough field to work in because all the others who help are women and they're obviously not as smart as men. So for me, it's very tough to organize. And it was like in the conversation, it was his reasoning for why his work is difficult. So, I mean, we found a solution for the situation. I was just wondering, like, if you get people from very different backgrounds, if that happens a lot. And basically, the other question is, if that doesn't happen a lot, do I really get people from very different parts of life? Or do we have a group that is interested in talking about society, that is interested in exchanging views, and that is interested to meet others, and we're still maybe not reaching the ones we actually are reaching out for?
Yeah, it doesn't happen a lot. That's one thing. Another thing is that one thing that doesn't, for example, whenever we conduct dialogue series, for example, with Ministry X or Y regarding a topic, because one thing that we do face at the end of the dialogues, a lot of people, this happened just yesterday actually, that the people then expressed that I found this to be like very fruitful and very good, but I felt like we were very like-minded during the dialogue, and all the dialogues that are part of dialogue series, like they're always recorded, as far as like nobody can be identified based on the recording, but everything that has been mentioned during the dialogue is always recorded if it's then put into use in some part of some work, like a decision-making process or whatever. And then whenever we look at the recordings, like every word has been mentioned. Whenever we look at the recordings, we can clearly say that people were not like-minded at all during the dialogue. 2 out of 10 people commented with this angle. 3 out of 10 people commented with this angle. 2 out of 10 people commented with this angle. But you can clearly tell that they're not like-minded at all. There are various different viewpoints and perspectives. But the thing that did not take place is an emerging conflict of opinions. That doesn't then then that's the one thing that doesn't really happen. And it probably creates this illusion that we are very like-minded during the dialogue. But we're not, but it has to do with the fact that we're not here to debate opinions, but rather we're here to express realities. And going back to the comment, for example, that you mentioned that regarding was it that women are not as smart or not as capable, something along those lines? I'm sorry.
That was his
It's
thesis, and the interesting thing was I got the situation clear, but it was the reaction of the other participants who, like, all of a sudden they flared up, and it got a bit heated.
understandably so. Understandably so. Yeah. Understandably so. But then that would, for example, in a timeout dialogue, that would be a situation where you would, as a facilitator, would step in and mention it that, hey, so and such, please do not express that is not correct. It's simply just not correct. That's already something that that can be discriminatory or that is discriminatory or has or devalues someone's human dignity, for example, and it's not part of the dialogue.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we never leave room for racism or xenophobia or misogyny or any kind of sexism. So there's never room for that, but we always leave room for hearing and understanding concerns and thoughts. But we never leave room for openly misogynist or racist or sexist comments, for example.
Yeah, we just got another comment in the chat, and I would like to read this maybe as a last thing, and then I would sort of close because we're getting to the end. It says here, I know of a situation in a course at our school when a male student started his contribution in the class with, we all know that women, da da da. The professor asked him to describe what he meant because our very diverse classroom might not all know the same thing that he was talking about. While this might not always work, it's an idea for addressing situations that are like this. Okay. Yes, so speaking of facilitating, as you've all heard during the last minutes, it takes some craft or maybe training to be a facilitator for this method. And Timeout does trainings for facilitators. And we from the KNB network would actually like to somehow organize a training for German librarians in the second half of the year. So if we're lucky, we might get Efe to come to Germany and train anything between 10 and 20 people maybe. And I will also put that very, it's not yet defined information in the email that I will send out together with the link to the recording. And if you're interested in receiving such a training, it normally takes 2 half days, right, Efe? It could be done in 2 half days.
1.5, 2 half
One
days.
and a
Yeah,
half. Yeah. Okay. But 2 days. Then let me know. And as I said, we're still in the early steps of organizing, but it's something we think that the method could be a nice alternative or addition to the Sprechen und Zuhören, which already is established in many or some German libraries. We would probably also translate the materials that Efe referred to and showed so that they can be in German and be available. So that's just as a heads up. And I would also at this moment point out the next session, which originally I had wrongly I put it on a holiday. So now it's the next session is moved to the 18th of June. It's again a Thursday. And we will have Maja Treile from the Latvian National Library as our speaker. And she will present the Riga Reading Manifesto, which the Latvian colleagues developed. And their approach is that reading is not just an individual skill, but actually a necessity to participate in a democratic society. And without the capacity to read and an actual decline in literacy, we also face threats to democracy. And how to counter that, the Latvian colleague will describe. They also are in the process of developing a national reading strategy. So it's again a different twist on our topic of democracy and libraries. Yes, again, that information will also be in email and on different websites. And you can register from tomorrow onwards if you want to for that session. Thank you again very much to Efe for being our guest today and sharing all this information. Thank you to all of you for listening, for sharing your thoughts, asking questions. And with that, have a happy day, a happy May 1st tomorrow, and enjoy the spring.
Wishing you all a happy May 1st, and thank you so much for the fruitful 90 minutes. It was a pleasure. Hopefully we get to see each other again in second half of the year.
Efe.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.